Well, welcome to the Ministry Chick Network podcast, where we encourage, equip, and empower women of faith to lead with clarity, confidence, and purpose. I'm your host, Melissa Mashburn. I am the Chief Encouragement Officer here at the Ministry Chick Network. And today I am joined by my friend, Bonni Mace. She is a certified Enneagram coach, spiritual companion, writer, and retreat leader, which I'm excited to talk about a little bit today as well. Bonni has such a huge heart for helping people cultivate wholeness and self-compassion through tools like the Enneagram and Christian spiritual formation. If you have ever wrestled with self-doubt, longed to lead from a healthier place, or wanted to see the Enneagram through a Christ-centered lens, this conversation is going to encourage you. So let's dive in. Welcome, Bonni. Thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I feel very hyped up already. It's great.
That's good. That is actually really, really good. I love that. Well, I'm excited. We always talk a little bit on camera before we get started because just want to kind of break the ice and get things. Now, you and I already know each other, so the ice is always broken. We're just like, let's just get right in. But for those that are just meeting you today, can you share a little bit about your background, like your family, your ministry journey? Because there is a ministry journey here as well,
Mhm.
and your heart behind coaching and retreats.
Yeah. Okay. So, as Melissa said, I'm Bonnie. I currently live in Maryland, out on the East Coast, and I live here with my husband. We've been together for 14 years now, and we've lived here for 14 years because we're the kind of married people who got married and immediately moved across the country. And then we stayed, and we have two little boys who are both now officially in elementary school. And it's so great because that means I can record this podcast without background noise, maybe just a dog barking. Like that's it, the peace and quiet is fantastic. Um, so that's just a little bit about me personally. And then ministry background, I actually have always really had a heart for the church. Like I've been a church girl, since I was born, and I was raised in the red pews kind of situation. And found really after college that I was drawn towards church ministry work and ended up on staff at a larger church here in Maryland and as the communications director. So I was in charge of all things marketing, social media, internal communications, graphic design, video, you guys who know communications departments at
Yeah.
church, yeah, you're immediately like, oh, I know all those hats, and it's a lot of hats. And so that's a little bit of my ministry journey there. I worked there for about 9.5 years, pretty fresh out of college. I was really young when I got started. And actually, at that staff job, that church staff job, is where I first learned about Enneagram. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on of how that impacted me. But one church, staff development time, learning about Enneagram, all of these light bulbs went off and connected the dots for me in new ways about what I'm drawn and called toward, which is healthy whole leaders. My favorite part of my ministry job turned out not to be graphic design or doing the social media. It was developing the volunteer leaders that trusted me. And so that set me on this path towards personal development, spiritual development, and wholeness, and understanding how God made us. And now that's really what shapes a lot of the work that I do now, which Melissa and some other helpful voices in my life remind me this too is ministry, even though I'm not on a church payroll. So that's encouragement I need to hear a lot of times. And I'm sure there are women listening, that you need to hear that too.
Mhm.
Stepping into just sort of a new ministry area. And my heart is really for those people who view themselves as spiritual guides. So when I say that, I mean ministry leaders, pastors, spiritual directors, people who tend to the human soul. And then I also have a heart for people who find themselves in a season of spiritual wandering where you're asking a lot of questions, you're maybe deconstructing or reconstructing, you're growing in your faith, and or you're in a new season. These are the people I love to serve. And so I do that through coaching, and recently getting into in-person retreats, which has been really, really fun and fulfilling in new ways. And writing, all the things we do on the internet, that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, and this, and this. So it's basically like communications at the church now in your own everyday life.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. I took all those really fun parts with me as I'm building the my own
Yeah.
business of marketing and communication. Yeah.
It is awesome. Well, one thing that I've heard you say before, and you and I have talked about, you say, and I'm looking to make sure, whole people make healthy communities. Which is a great statement. Whole people make healthy communities. What does that mean to you personally?
Yeah. So if you know much about the Enneagram, I'll drop my type really quick. I'm a 9. I have an 8 wing, if you really know what that means. And a type 9 is the peacemaker. And one of our superpowers as a type 9 is to look and immediately see how all of the pieces impact each other. Like type 9s, we're drawn towards wholeness and unity and togetherness. And so that's really something that I've had with me forever, is being able to walk into a room and immediately know how each domino is going to affect the other domino and
Mhm.
what's going to be a ripple effect here. And so as I learned more about Enneagram, I was able to then see exactly where people who were maybe acting out of their core motivation of fear, for instance, were protecting themselves, and then something came out sideways and then it changed the entire feel of the room.
Yeah.
And the higher up you are on the leadership chain, right? The
Mhm.
more you're sideways, right? You're not necessarily being malicious or attacking in any personal way or like trying to make a toxic community, but the higher up you are in the leadership network, the less if you're operating from a fractured place, right? Fracturing being the opposite of wholeness. If you're operating from a fractured place, you're operating out of fear and defensiveness and stress, you are going to create a toxic community, a toxic environment. So, the more we can integrate and recognize that as a whole person, I'm not perfect, right? Wholeness does not mean perfection, or there would be no whole people. Wholeness simply means embracing all of who I am, strengths and weaknesses. So if I'm a person who has weaknesses, that means I'm a person who messes up once in a while, and I can go and fix that. So when I talk about wholeness, I definitely want to speak to the perfectionist in the room right away and say I'm not telling you to become more perfect, because that's not the goal. I'm asking you to embrace the fact that God made you a human person who wasn't meant to be a tiny little God, right? We're meant to be a reflection of a part of who God is. And our wholeness is understanding more and more of what that looks like in my personality, in my unique personality, what that brings to the team. And then those whole people, when we operate from this level of health, healing, wholeness, awareness, self compassion, we model that for our communities. And then we bring together these healthy, growing, thriving, mutually beneficial communities. And so that's really what whole people make healthy communities mean. And, the little thing I sneak in there at the end sometimes, especially for ministry minded people, is that then healthy communities are the ones that can change the world. I think we often try to skip ahead to that last part first, right? And really, what we need to focus on too is that we're part of changing the world. Like we exist in the world too, and our wholeness matters if we're trying to bring about health and change to the world. So, yeah, whole people make healthy communities.
I was so glad you said all of that because, hello, my name is Melissa. I am a recovering perfectionist.
Mm,
You speaking into wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It means living into the wholeness of who God created you to be, not some other standard. I think that's really, really huge and honestly liberating because
mhm.
we don't have to try. And I think we not that we don't have to try, but we're not striving to be something that God didn't create us to be or wired a way that he didn't wire us to be. We could have a whole sidebar on the higher you go up the leadership
Yeah.
tree, tell your wings and the health. We're gonna have to come back and have that conversation.
Yes.
But I wanna keep going, and I know if
Mhm.
somebody's listening right now, they're like, "I wish." We will have Bonnie back, and we will talk about that, I promise.
Yeah.
Um, and you talked about this a little bit on your intro about when you first encountered the Enneagram, how, like, all these pieces and parts started coming together for you. What kind of clarity did it bring to you, like, I know you said this was kind of like almost an aha moment, but the
Mhm.
clarity in, your own personal faith and leadership journey, what kind of clarity did it bring to you?
Yeah, so I will say one of the things about my personality as a type 9 is we are professional people pleasers, right? One of the other superpowers that is not as positive is that we can disappear and acquiesce and make sure that everybody in the room is taken care of, and we kind of think that like what we do there may not matter. So what that led to was honestly a lot of series of events for myself where I was listening to what everybody else told me I should be, and I was
Mm,
doing that. And
okay.
then all of a sudden, I achieved everything that everyone told me I should be. And thanks be to God, it was the same time that I was starting to learn about Enneagram. Here I was at the pinnacle of like, I got married, I had the kid, I had the great serving career in a church, right? Like all of the things were pointing to you have done it, you've done a great job, and boom, you feel the emptiness, right? And you're wondering, is something wrong with me? What's going on
Mm,
here? And then in comes the Enneagram and started to explain to me. So for me, uh, explained how I'm a self forgetting type, how thinking about what I want and what I desire and what my own goals are is something that I don't give myself permission to do, and how I might feel a
mm,
draw towards leadership and influence and helping people to grow together, like that bridge building that type nines can do as a peacemaker. I might feel that draw,
mhm,
but then I might feel conflict to like, what if I mess it up? And what if I cause conflict? And I'm going to abandon that part of myself because I'm more afraid of conflict, right? So,
mm,
what Enneagram did is it kind of shone a gentle flashlight, if you will, on all of these motivators that were creating these patterns of behavior in myself that I would get frustrated with or confused by, or that were leaving me feeling really hollow because I was actually shelving a large part of who God made me to be in order to protect myself from what I might be afraid of, right? So
wow.
the Enneagram focuses in on, instead of behaviors, it focuses in on your core motivations. And those core motivations of fear, desire, your weakness, and your longing, those are the things that actually shape your behaviors and they shape your perceptions and they shape your defenses. And then so as soon as I could understand the kind of like, oh, I won't open my mouth in a meeting even if I have a really great idea that I know would work because I'm afraid someone will get mad at me for it, and it will cause conflict. So
Mm,
I just stay quiet. And what I'm doing then is actually shelving what the Holy Spirit is prompting me to do, what the Holy Spirit has put me on
mm,
this team to help bring about. And so, of course, I'm feeling empty. Of course, I'm feeling conflicted because I've got my own self shackled up, but the
mm,
Enneagram shone a gentle light on the fact that I was just thinking I was doing all the right things, following the right path according to what people were prescribing for me.
right,
And it was saying, you've bound yourself up.
right.
You've buried
Mm,
yourself. God made you to be more than this. And what's interesting is God puts those things in us and they terrify us, right? Like all the things that we grow into of how God made
yeah,
us to be are actually really
yeah,
terrifying when we just start stepping toward them. And so to
mhm,
kind of have permission to be like, of course it's scary to you because it's looking at your deepest fear head on and saying, I trust God anyway, right? So
oh,
that was really the biggest part of clarity for me. And then it also lays out, it has this built in paths towards growth, right? That we can lean towards. And it has particular challenges that we can take to kind of stretch ourselves more into who God made us to be. And so I started playing with that and
okay.
testing the waters and moving forward, and how God grew and shaped my leadership from there
Mhm,
was pretty remarkable for me, and changed my life in some pretty massive ways. Like, would not be here on this podcast with you, you know, because I would have just stayed quiet and continued to keep my thoughts and my work to myself. So
yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I love that not only did it bring you so much clarity personally and professionally, um, you've seen it like unfold and unravel in so many new ways. And I just love that for me, you are like redeeming I'm not a 9, but I guarantee there are other 9s right now that are like, "Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes." And I have worked with several 9s over the years, and it was they all struggled with the sloth perception
Mhm.
a 9 usually gets, and you're not showing that at all. You're showing vulnerability, and strength and weakness, and I'll say I'm a 3, and it sounds like it should be great. I'm an achiever or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's a lot. There's a lot of things behind the scenes. So I think this is kind of one of those topics of when you understand yourself and you
Mhm.
understand how God wired you, you're better able and capable to go out and do the work that He's called you to do
Yeah.
from a whole place, a healthy place, instead of a broken, confused, 'cause and I think we could probably go there too,
Mhm.
is this is all part of identity. It's
Yeah.
understanding who God made you to be, and when you understand that, you can walk more confidently in that, which
Mhm.
honestly, uh, it I wish, and I'm hoping that through these conversations that more women will be able to do that. And so I want to ask you a question specifically for a woman in ministry who is feeling unseen or stuck, and she's trying to figure out how she can be compassionate in her self-awareness and maybe hear from God because she feels stuck and unseen, which has been a recurring theme
Mm.
last year for a lot of women.
Yeah. So I teach a 3-step cycle of wholeness with my coaching. And it kind of goes like this. It starts with self-awareness, so learning about yourself. And then we move into a state of reflection and asking questions like, how does this manifest for me personally? Where do I see this coming up in my life? What are my reactions, right? So, reflection questions are a big part of my coaching practice. And then after that reflection, we move to self compassion. And self compassion is simply offering yourself the same empathy, grace, and compassion that you would offer to a friend. Because most of us women, especially, we
Yeah.
are so much more kind and loving to our best friends than we
Mm,
are to our very selves, right? And
100%.
yeah, and here's why this matters uh, as far as hearing from God, right? We know in our shared faith and our shared Christian faith that grace is constantly available. This is the scandal of the gospel, right? Is that God offers grace. We are covered. Un we are accepted no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Grace is always available no matter what we do. God does not stifle this grace from coming to us. God does not do that. God freely offers God's grace constantly. It is at our access whenever. Do you know what gets in the way of God's grace? The only thing is your very self. It's
Mm,
literally your own expectations of how you should be showing up in the world or how you think other people think you should be showing up in the world or the standards that you should achieve. And let me tell you, we live in a society and a culture that puts standards on women that are absolutely and completely impossible, but we're so immersed in it that we think it's reality. So we carry these impossible standards. We carry these impossibly long to do lists. We carry these impossibly long expectations, right? That we think we need to fit into, and we don't allow ourselves the grace when we fall short.
mm,
And then what that does is it just stands in between us and our ability to receive God's grace when we are harder on ourselves than God Himself would be, right? So I think the idea of using compassionate self awareness helps in a couple of ways. One, we can hear the self awareness, we can hear the like icky, sticky things about ourselves without getting stuck in a cycle of shame or guilt or straight up denial, right?
right,
Because
right.
then we move to the reflection, we understand how this is working in our lives a little bit more. And then we move to self compassion and we think of ourselves like we would think of our best friend. And
Mm,
we would think, I would never hold my best friend to these impossible, to this impossible to do list that she's given herself. I would never hold my friend to never lose her cool if someone was speaking to her that way. I would never
mm,
hold us. And then we say, okay, I am a human woman with strengths and with weaknesses and with limitations and with gifts. And when I meet my limitations and when I meet my weaknesses, God is there
Yeah.
offering grace. And when I can turn and allow myself to accept that grace from God and remember that God is not upset with me, God is not shaking his finger at me, right? God is here saying, come and be replenished, daughter. Like, come and chill with me for a minute. Let me love you and remind you that even when I still
Mm.
am obsessed with you. I'm still enamored with you. I still call you a masterpiece, and you're going to get up tomorrow and we're going to try again and it will be okay. Right. And so I think that just opens up a little bit more of a line of honest and open and communication between you and God when we can see ourselves and challenge ourselves to see ourselves the way that God sees us
Yeah.
and give ourselves the same gifts that God gives us. Right. Um, that self compassion practice becomes insanely freeing. That's a great way to drop some of the shackles that we place on ourselves. And that cycle of wholeness of learning something new about ourselves, understanding how it's coming and how it's impacting our lives and our surroundings, and then
Mm.
giving ourselves the grace to grow beyond it becomes an important practice toward becoming more whole.
That's so good. And I love that you said how we should be showing up in the world. I was like, oh, yes. I guarantee you women right now are like, yes, exactly. And it's the Pinterest perfect. It's
Oof.
the
Yeah.
highlight reels. It's all the things that we see that have been touched up or edited. Um
Or a straight AI now, Melissa.
or straight AI, which is terrifying. And
Yeah.
I do love AI. I'm not saying whatever, but the yes, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's funky. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and here's what I want to ask you. So you've worked with both individuals and teams. And we're going to talking about confidence a little bit here. And I wanted to ask you, what patterns are you seeing, especially like as you just said, how they're showing up, how they should be. That word should. Oh,
Oof. Yeah.
that's a word. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what patterns do you see that are holding women leaders back?
Mm-hmm. I think the number one thing that I see is pace of life. And I want to start by de-shaming this right away because I think every woman listening is probably like, oh my gosh, she's about to call me out. And that is because you live in 2025. And we are, as a generation, as humanity, we are taking in more information, more stimulation at a faster rate
Yeah.
and expected to process all of it and expected to produce at that level. Like Melissa and I were just talking before this about all of the ways you have to just simply show up on social media to have a business these days, right? Like it's an insane a lot amount
Yeah.
of standard. And there was recently something that even came out from Instagram that says, oh, if you take a social media hiatus, the algorithm will actually punish you. So, literally, they are punishing us for rest. And we are finite people, right?
Right.
We only can do so many things and we can only show up in so many ways. And we can really, truly only be authentic to ourselves. As soon as we start showing up in ways that we're not wired to show up, that we're not gifted to show up as, that honestly we're not called to, that God doesn't have this expectation on us, that's when some of these behaviors that we cultivate in ourselves start coming out sideways. And how I like to put it is this fast paced, high level of expectation constantly going, never checking in with ourselves, what it does is it starts to like pull ourselves apart. Like pretend like I have a ball of Play Doh and I'm just ripping it into 1,000 pieces and throwing it across my house. And this is how we exist as people.
Yeah.
So, of course, we can't feel centered or confident or clear. We're in a million places at one time. And
Mm.
so I do think the biggest pattern that I see is just this is there is a societal expectation of pace. And obviously it varies across America a little bit and obviously it'll vary across the world a little bit. Some places I live in Washington DC, we're as fast as you can go here, right? And there is some rural places that don't quite have it to this level of intensity, but I promise you you're probably still doing more
Yeah.
than you need to be doing. So I do think that big pattern of what's holding women leaders back is just the fact that we're moving so fast, we forget to
Mm.
check in with ourselves.
That's good.
We don't get the clarity because we don't ask ourselves what we want.
Mhm.
And then because we never ask ourselves what we want, we can't measure that up against what God is calling us to do.
Yeah.
And because we can never measure up to see, like, is this what God is actually calling us to do? People will constantly put stuff on your list. Always, right? Somebody else has something for you to do. And you will
Yes.
simply take it on, right?
Right.
Like you will just take it on and then you'll keep going in this pattern of going faster and faster and faster and getting cloudier and cloudier and cloudier and running faster and faster towards burnout. And
Right.
so I think that it's this very countercultural need for us to right now say, I am a finite person. I know the internet feels infinite. Like, I know that the people are telling me, like with AI, it can boost our productivity. And so I should now be even more productive. But even with all of the technology, all of the tools, the fastest cars and trains and planes, like we still have these limits. And when we push past them and when we try to honestly live up to the expectations that all the shoulds, the way we should ourselves,
Yeah.
we get into these patterns of just feeling more and more torn apart, more fractured, more muddied, and that contributes to this sort of toxic pace of life that we find ourselves in 2025. So, yeah, that would be the biggest one that I see.
Wow. As you're talking, I kept thinking, right, we're finite, we're human. Um, and AI is not. It's not.
Yeah.
And it's, of course it can do more and all of those other things. We're not supposed to be as effective as that
Mhm.
because God created us. He hand knit us together, and somebody else made a machine, right?
Yes.
Um, Gosh, pace of life, and you're right. If it's kind of like, I think it's an old saying that if you don't manage your schedule, somebody else will. And
Yeah, I've heard that.
that's why you always like, I'm blocking off time to study. I'm blocking off time for deep work. And that's another thing. When you run at that pace of life, you're not really able to do deep work. And
Mhm.
work requires time and no multitasking and laser focus. And so then it makes me wonder is if all the things that we are producing are just a little bit less
Mm,
than if we were just doing the thing that God
yeah.
do. Wow, that is
Mm.
really good, and pace of life, got it. So, what is one, because you've shared a lot, what is one rhythm or practice, that you would encourage leaders to adopt if they want to serve from a place of wholeness instead of exhaustion? Now, we know we've set the tone with the pace of life and stuff
Mhm.
like that, and even self-compassion, but, like, what, practically speaking, is a rhythm or practice that they can do?
I think micro breaks are
Mm.
super
Okay.
important. I think one of the things that we can do, like I was talking about pace of life, is fill every minute with something. Like we feel like if we're not doing something, then we shouldn't. We have to prove our right to exist in the world a little bit. And so I do think micro breaks where we literally just sit in complete and total silence, even if it's for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Give our brains a chance to rest without picking up the phone and scrolling through. That doesn't count, right? Like that's
Right,
still input.
right.
So I think breaks of silence really, really help. And then I think creating a rhythm of reflection.
Mm.
So this is just a little habit to check in with yourself. Like I was talking before, all of the ways we get pulled into a thousand pieces, that means that we're not checking in with ourselves because ourselves are scattered all about the world, right? And so creating a rhythm or a habit of simply saying, having a question about yourself that you sit and think about. How am I feeling today? Right? Like
Yeah,
doing something like an examine that you can just carry those questions with you. An examine is like an end of the day practice. It's an innation spiritual practice where you ask like, when was I happiest today? When was I saddest today? And
right.
that little thing seems so basic, but it tells you something about yourself that you probably have run too fast to notice.
Yeah.
And this really, it just allows you to understand more what is driving you. So if you know your Enneagram type, if you understand your motivations, when you start using the practice of reflection, say for instance, you're in a meeting and you something came out of you that surprised you, right? Like some saying like
That's
somebody
right.
got under your skin. Yes. And you
That's
snapped
real life
back,
right there.
real life. Even just the subtle question of asking, what brought that out of me?
Yeah.
Was it something that happened before I got into the room? Was it something that he said? Is this related to one of my core fears? Is
Mhm.
this related to something I'm not getting? Is this something to, like, where did that come from? And
Mhm.
it's not coming from because you're a terrible person, right? Like, that's kind of where we jump a lot of
Right.
times. It is coming from somewhere. And
Mhm.
that's, I love what Emily P. Freeman says, that's an arrow towards something you need to tend to, right? So I do think just a little practice of reflection. And if that's at the end of the day, getting like a line a day journal and reflecting on your day, or if it's at the beginning of the day, if you're a morning person, bless you. I wish I was a morning person. But maybe that time is in the morning where you can just wake up a little earlier than the rest of your household and sit and think about your life. I think just the little practice of reflection is so, so important because it's going to give you that arrow, like Emily says, to point you into toward what is a new practice that I need? What is something I need to let go of? Like, where do I need to make room in my life? What do I need to include? Where do I need to set a boundary? Like, do I need to ask for my sabbatical? What are the things? The
Right.
little bit of reflection is going to point you towards those bits of clarity. So,
Right. I love that. The micro breaks, 5 minutes of solitude. And I think what I'm hearing you say, the key there is literal solitude. No,
yeah,
no podcast. No, like I'm a huge atomic habits, habit stacking,
yeah.
do multiple things and I'm a three. I just gonna, um, but a couple of things just to fall in line with what you're saying, a couple of things that I do that mirror what you're talking about is, the first thing when I get up in the morning, I just check, make sure there's no emergencies, and I clear all my messages, and I
Mm,
look at my phone until I finish my quiet time, and in my
mhm,
quiet time, I don't have any noise. I'm literally just I need to be alone. Um, I'm trying to be way more intentional about the putting in before I'm absorbing the other things. And then you also
mm.
this rhythm of reflection. And this year, actually, I think it was mid last year, I downloaded an app that one of my friends suggested called How I Feel.
Yeah, it's a great
That's
app.
a
Mhm,
great app. Oh my
mhm.
goodness. So I don't work for them. We don't get anything. It's
So
just super duper practical to mirror what you're saying on this rhythm of reflection. And so
mhm,
certain times of the day, it'll just pop up and how are you feeling? And it allows you to process
mhm.
in words other than good, bad, happy, sad, angry, right?
Yeah.
How are you doing? Good. How was your day? Bad.
Yeah,
Are you feeling
mhm.
bad, right? Because we would default to so
Yes.
it expands the language so you can dig into it. I love that, Bonnie.
Mm,
It fits with what you're saying. That is a very, very right now, right today, practical step to check in with yourself.
mhm,
But what I'm also hearing you say is there's all of these pieces and parts of everything you said that kind of come together from understanding who you are, understanding and that is your Enneagram, not just your Enneagram, but who you are in Christ, but how God made you and created you,
mhm.
wired you, and things to look out for. Because I don't hear you saying, I'm a nine, so that's just the way it is, kind of thing. I
No.
don't hear you saying, because I have had people say, well, I'm just a four, and I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Don't. This is this is Enneagram is not to put a sticker on you or a badge that says get out of jail free card. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. It's awareness and understanding, and this is a lot of what you do even through your coaching is to put
Mhm.
all these pieces and parts together so that you can operate in that wholeness that you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
And I love that. Um, gosh, we went through that time super fast.
It's so
We'll
fast.
definitely have you back on because I do want to circle back to
Yeah.
if you are leading and you're not in a healthy place, how that affects organization,
Mhm.
how to be aware of that. But if people want to connect with you, what's the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah. So my website would be great. It's bonnimace.com. And my mom is an Enneagram 4, which means they love to be unique. So my name is actually spelled Bonni. There's no E.
Got it.
It is confusing, but it's there. So bonnimace.com. On there, you can find all of my social media. My Instagram handle is also at Bonni Mace. And what I'd really love to offer you is like, I actually have free reflection questions for your Enneagram type. And when I tell you they are free, like they come to your inbox once a week. If you want to have a rhythm of reflection starting to build in, it's super low hanging fruit, and I did it because I love you and I want you to be whole, right? Like, and that is literally, there for you on my website whenever you'd love to use it. So there, Instagram, I'm also on Threads pretty regularly, sometimes on Facebook, and those are my primary places where I hang out on the internet.
Perfect. Well, we will make sure to list all your socials and everything that you shared with us in the show notes. And I'm so grateful for your heart, for your willingness to share your story and your journey with us. I'm sure that you will be back and we will have more conversations. But thanks so much for making space for us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I love having these conversations and serving people, women in ministry particularly. Like we are often underserved, aren't we? So, thank you for inviting me to do just that. It's such a gift.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, friend, I hope that you have been encouraged by today's conversation with Bonni. One thing, like I said, that really stood out to me was not just the whole leaders, was this whole idea of, and I took notes. So if you see me looking on this, because I was taking notes while she was talking, the micro breaks and the rhythm of reflection, that's going to be a really easy, practical today type thing. But I want you to stay connected with us, but also with Bonni. And like I said, her email, not her email, her website will be in the show notes, and you'll find all the links. But if today's episode stirred something in you and you're really motivated and really loving what we're doing in these conversations, I'd love to ask you to do us a favor and leave a review of the show, share it with your friends so that more people, more women of faith will know that we are here and that we are having these conversations that will help you lead well everywhere God places you. So thanks so much for joining us today. We will see you soon.